Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a early impression video on a fragrance I never would have been able to get my nose on if not for the kindness and the generosity of the community. And this is going to be from the house of Dixit Zak, and it's called Rising Cologne. Now, Rising Cologne is a 2022 release, and it follows on the heels of their very popular Rising Mysore series. I believe there was a Rising Mysore 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Rising Mysore is sort of like what the house is known for as far as me as an outsider. I am not somebody who is polished on the house of Dixit Zak. But I will tell you a little bit of background on them. So here's sort of the quick little blurb on the house, if you will, since this is a new house to my channel. But first, again, I have to say thank you to Nick for supplying me with this very generous decant. I got a chance to wear it to bed. You can see the dent I put in the damn thing. And I have worn it today as my scent of the day, all day. And so I'll give you my thoughts. It is sort of an early impression video. The other thing I should mention, there are almost 0 videos on YouTube about this fragrance, none. So this could be considered a little bit of an exclusive. There is some guy that did like a 30-second YouTube short video where he said, oh, this is just an amazing perfume, buy it sort of thing. But that was not really a review. So here's the blurb on the house, and we'll get into sort of where this sits in my mind as far as colognes, because this is considered to be a cologne, but it's done more in the artisanal style of things. So we'll get to that. But let me give you a little blurb about the house, since again, this is a new house to my channel. Dixit Zak is a brand of exquisite olfactory blends. Now, this is not me saying this. This is the blurb. Created by professionals Nitesh Dixit and Zakir Laskar. Nitesh is a qualified chemical engineer with an extensive knowledge of modern science and perfumery. Zakir has an in-depth experience of traditional Indian fragrances and rare Oriental exposure. As duo together, we have collaborated and designed an exhilarating range of perfume blends that have a common resonance for them and reflect their passion, originality, note by note, combining local ingredients and Western perfumery. Dixit Zak is about making a fearless and truthful statement. Fragrances, that are fashioned to alleviate the existing chaos and reconnect within. Be prepared to free fall in the valley of nature. Wow, hell of an opening, hell of a blurb. And so if you've never seen the bottles, this is what the bottles basically look like. They look like this. This is a 30 ml Emperor's Court, which I will review very soon. Peter from Fragrance View very kindly sent this to me because he said the brand sent it to him. And he actually got 3 full bottles sent from the brand. This was one of them. And he said, hey, based on your taste, Ramsey, I think you would like this the best from the house. So he sent it to me, Emperor's Court. So I'm still getting to know this, but I definitely like Emperor's Court more than Rising Cologne. I'll tell you that. So Peter does know my taste. But full review will come of this sooner than later. But I just wanted to sort of show you the bottle. You can see they're manufactured in India. And so these run Dixit Zak fragrances. This particular one, now most of them are 30 mils like this. But since this is a cologne, it's, even though it's an eau de parfum concentration, they call it a cologne, and you actually get 100 mils of this. So you get a lot more juice with Rising Cologne. And it really doesn't last as long either. I mean, it lasts a respectable amount of time, but not as long as I would like. 5-6 hours is pretty common with what I've been smelling today, as far as longevity goes. So, but it is an eau de parfum, even though it's listed as Rising Cologne. It is an eau de parfum, and it runs for $160. Okay, so on their website, it's $160. Most of their fragrances are between $200 and $300. They also have a $2,000 pure oud they made, which I would have loved to smell that one. But most of them are $200-$300 give or take, but for 30 mils. So for 160, you get 100 mils on Rising Cologne. Okay, so let me give you the blurb, if you will, on Rising Cologne, according to the Dixit Zak's website. Rising Cologne is a burst of beautiful, sweet citrus with green verdant outlines, heap of ripe mandarin orange scent that is invigorating and refreshing. The zesty citrus elements travel all the way towards the dry down. Rising Cologne is nostalgic and old world charm and Indo-Parisian aura to it, Lemon peel and green coriander verdant lace gives a delightful outline. Little dash of spice and patchouli turns lightly mossy, citrusy, earthy, and sandalwood towards the dry down. That's a little blurb, if you will. And it's a decent representation for a decent cologne. I mean, this is not something that I hated, and it's not something that I enjoyed. That's sort of where I fall on this. So just to get you in the ballpark, okay? I'm not saying they're the same, but just to get you in the ballpark, if you've ever smelled Dmitry Bortnikoff's line of colognes, and actually I heard somebody try to mention this in one of the databases, and somebody else was like, Bortnikoff, this has nothing to do with Bortnikoff. Well, it sort of does, because this Rising Cologne is in the same ballpark as some of the Bortnikoff colognes. Like, for example, I reviewed Moss Cologne on my channel, and my favorite of the colognes that I've smelled so far is actually Amber Cologne, and I'll review this. This is going to be a full review one of these days. But Amber Cologne, and I've said this on many different reviews, Amber Cologne is one of the most posh, expensive smelling cologne fragrances you can wear. This is getting out of a Rolls Royce. Stepping out of the Rolls Royce, you don't open the damn door though. The driver opens your door, you know, and you're dressed to the nines. Even though your suit may not be the most expensive, it fits you the best. You know, that's the feeling. Everything is green lights on your day when you're wearing Amber Cologne. It's a beautiful, I reserve this for special occasions, usually when it's hot, like in the summer. You know, if it's hot on my birthday or something like that, I'll wear that. And it's a brilliant special occasion fragrance because it really does smell like $1,000,000. Rising Cologne doesn't have that same posh level about it, although what it has is it has a similar artisanal cologne feel. And what I mean by that is if you're familiar with traditional colognes, you know, the citrus heavy sort of hit, you know, of this, as some would say, this cologne, this very citrusy sort of, you know, just invigorating just burst of freshness, right? And you spray it on, you get the hit of it, and if you can smell it 15, 20, 30 minutes later, you're happy kind of thing, right? That's the old school eau de cologne for men. The artisanal eau de cologne sort of take that fresh style of citruses, but they try and many times amp them up. And I'm putting Dixit Zak's in the artisanal category with Bortnikoff and Arise Ladore, although they're much lower tier to me. They're nowhere near the Bortnikoffs, the Ensars, the Arise. They're not. You know, they want to be, but they're beneath them. But they're still in the same, I would put them in the same ballpark, if you will. I wouldn't put this in Dior, Guerlain. I just wouldn't put them with those brands. I would put them more with the Arises and the Bortnikoffs of the world, but a lower tier quality of that type of company, if you will. So imagine the artisanal colognes, and what many of the Middle Eastern or artisanal houses will do when they're doing these colognes is they will have a little bit of a homage to the vintage cologne style with that fresh citrusy burst, but they'll have some sort of an oud or, you know, some sort of Middle Eastern ambergris. Like this has a lot of ambergris in it, the Bortnikoff. Rising Cologne does not have ambergris, but what it smells a little bit like it has some ambergris in the top, and I thought it did because many times I say I like to sort of break my fragrances down before actually reading the note listing. And when I was making my notes, one of the things that I wrote is that there's like a ambergris feel to the top, like a little sparkly zestiness whenever you first smell the sweet orange and the mandarin orange and all that stuff in the top, right? And there's a key lime note, which is brilliant. We'll talk about that. But the opening feels like you're smelling two things mixed with the citruses, amber and ambergris, okay? Both. It's almost like you get a little bit of both. You get a little bit of amberiness and you get a little bit of ambergris mixed with that big dash of zesty cologne style, if you will. And the citruses do last. To Dixit Zak's credit, when they say the citruses really last into the dry down, that is a true statement. It does feel like the citruses last. But the other thing you're going to notice right from the get-go is the florals, okay? So, and that's one of the reasons why Dmitry Bortnikoff's cologne-style fragrances jumped out to me when I first smelled this because, and I've said this before, but Dmitry Bortnikoff to me is sort of the unsung hero of playing with floral notes and executing them in a way that is naturally gifted. He is a naturally gifted, you know, when he puts florals in a composition, they're almost unlike any florals you've ever smelled. And it happens over and over and over again, at least in his older compositions that I've talked about on the channel. Oud Monarch, Amber Cologne, you know, Oud Maximus, so forth and so on. So you're going to get a lot of florals from Rising Cologne. And those florals are Jasminum grandiflorum, which is a very specific type of jasmine. And I think I had the Wikipedia page up and it closed on me. Let me see if I can find it again. Jasminum grandiflorum is also known as Spanish jasmine, royal jasmine, Catalan jasmine, or Sicilian jasmine. And it's a species of jasmine that is very specifically targeted. It's native to South Asia, okay, and the Arabian Peninsula, which makes sense for a company like Dixit Zak, right? Oh, and also East Africa, and some parts of China, sorry. So the species is widely cultivated and reportedly naturalized in Guinea, the Maldives, Cook Islands, so forth and so on. And it is closely related to, it's sort of like a offspring, if you will, treated as merely a form of Jasminum officinale. The plant is known as Saman Pincha or Pincha in Sri Lanka. And so it's basically a jasmine-looking shrub bush. I don't know enough to really know how this particular bit of jasmine compares to all the other jasmines, although you can go check out my 50 ingredients list that I did with Russian Adam. He sent me some jasmine grandiflorum and some different types of jasmine, and we sort of smelled some of the differences, but I know the grandiflorum basically means that it's the jasmine with the larger flowers, the bigger, larger flowers on the bush. And so whenever you're smelling this particular jasmine, you're going to notice it's mixed with other florals. So you're going to get some rose, you're going to get some ylang, and you're going to get some tuberose. And the Jasminum grandiflorum is just in the top. What ends up coming through in the base is Jasmine Absolute. And the Absolute is usually denser and thicker. And so when you're smelling this jasmine, it's going to give off a bit of a slightly dirty vibe, just a little bit, all right? It's interesting because the best part about this fragrance to me is the opening. And what they've done is they basically balanced this very nice, and I use that word. I know sometimes nice can be sort of a negative, and here it's both. It's a negative and it's a positive because this is a nice fragrance. It's a fragrance that smells pleasant and all that stuff, but it's not really a fragrance that moves me. You know what I mean? Like I definitely wouldn't give them $160 for this. No way, because it wouldn't go get used properly in my collection. There's so many other things I would want to wear ahead of this. But they did a good job in the opening of balancing the bergamot, mandarin orange, which that mandarin orange and orange combo basically gives it a little bit of sweetness to the composition. And there's a key lime pie. Sorry, take that back. Key lime. I don't know where the pie came from. Maybe that was just wishful thinking. Key lime note in the top. And the key lime sort of offsets the sweeter orange with some tartness. So you have some sweet citruses mixed with the tartness of the lime. And that's where the jasmine really starts to sort of make its appearance, right? And so it's blended well enough to where the floral freshness that you're getting from the jasmine with a little bit of indolic, just a little bit of indolic dirtiness, it doesn't take away from the heart of the fragrance, which is a cologne. It's supposed to be a eau de cologne smelling fragrance, even though it's an eau de parfum, okay? And so the cologne freshness in the composition, you can almost treat this like an eau de cologne. Like you can just spray away. I don't know if you can really overspray this. You know, because maybe the sweet opening from the orange might get a little bit cloying in the high heat. There is a little bit of spice as well. Pink pepper joins the party. And there is a note of henna. And interestingly enough, I think Arige Ladore had a henna fragrance that came, I can't remember, maybe in their 6th collection. I think it was called Ghoul Henna. I'll have to do an individual review one day of that. But I remember that the henna flower sort of adds a little bit of this delicate, slightly sweet, slightly white floral, but almost like this tea-like vibe. And both in the, imagine this sort of, imagine this very pleasant, slightly earthy, slightly tea-like smell, like someone's brewing tea. But you're also maybe smelling like the leaves of a plant. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine smelling the leaves of a plant with the tea, with that earthiness and the white floral. Very sweet white floral. So you have the henna flower that mixes with all the other flowers I was mentioning, and it gives it a nice smell. You know what I mean? It doesn't really move me, even though the citruses are very well done. And like I said, the orange adds a little bit of sweetness. The lime adds a little bit of tart touch to it, and it works like a contrast. It contrasts, the citruses contrast each other, the florals kind of contrast each other. And when you're smelling those sparkly citruses in the opening and the florals really start to come forward, it does feel like you're getting a little bit of an ambergris-like feel. There's a little bit of that sparkle there in the opening. Unfortunately, that's the best part of the fragrance for me, is the opening. Because as it continues to dry, what you end up getting is more and more of the flowers. Tuberose comes forward pretty heavy, a little bit of a green tuberose as well. And tuberose historically has been a big no-no for me, although I have come to terms with that note as time has gone on, but it's still not my favorite. When I was looking at the note listing, the notes that really jumped out to me, where I was hoping the dry down on this was going to be amazing, because the dry down has Australian sandalwood, Bangladeshian oud, civet, frankincense, Indian sandalwood, and sandalwood. So there's 3 types of sandalwood. There's oud, and there's civet. No ambergris, but it's still, this is done in that artisanal style, cologne, if you will, right? And so I must admit, as I was wearing this, I couldn't help but thinking, like, man, what if they would have doubled the price or half the juice and got rid of the Australian sandalwood and all that shit and just stuck in that Mysore sandalwood note that they're known for? Because when I think of Dixit Zak, the very first thing I think of, even though I've never smelled it, is Rising Mysore, because that's what the brand is known for. They're known, in at least in the fragrance community, if you know anything about Dixit Zak, you probably know about Rising Mysore. And so when I see these cheaper sandalwood alternatives, I know not everything is going to be super premium, high-end, and all that stuff, but as I'm smelling this, it really left me wanting. And part of that, I understand, is because I have me and Rush and Adam like to joke that we have a disease. We always want more. We want more oud, more civet, more of the animalics and all that stuff. This doesn't give it to you. This just sort of fades away into a very fresh, sort of slightly woody, slightly milky sandalwood, but the sandalwood also can give off, a little bit of that slight pickly vibe. Nowhere near as bad as Le Labo Santal 33, but there is, a little bit of the floral, pickly vibe that Australian sandalwood can give sometimes. And I'm just sitting there, as I'm wearing it, and I reapplied this multiple times, hoping to maybe get some different facets. But every time I reapplied, I enjoyed the opening, and then I just kind of got left wanting for more. I was hoping the oud would be more, and the sandalwood would feel more high quality and all that stuff. And I understand $160 for 100 ml is not a bad price. But that's really my biggest beef, is I think if you took this composition and you really amped up the oud and you really amped up the civet, I think they could have had something very special here. The oud, since it's of the Bangladeshian variety, sort of gives off, again, this little whiff of coffee, almost like a sort of earthiness, a slightly woody, smoky. There is some frankincense in here, so maybe the frankincense gives off a slight bit of smokiness in the base, but it feels like it's almost coming from the oud, and it gives off this, tea-like tobacco aroma, if you will. And you notice in the write-up, in the little mock-up, they continually use the word verdant, that this is a verdant fragrance, that it is green coriander verdant lace gives a delightful outline, sweet citruses with green verdant outline. I think a lot of that greenness I'm not really sure where it comes from. They said coriander. Um, there's also, I mentioned tuberose can sometimes come across as very green. There's also ginger, which adds a little more to the fresh side of things. Remember, I was saying it's a very fresh, sort of invigorating opening, if you will, along with the jasmine. And in Fragrantica, there's a note of clay in the base. And actually, even though there's no clay note listed on the Dixit Zak website, I could see this clay almost like this. If you've ever smelled, this is just a decant that a friend made me, but if you've ever smelled Mitti attar, the attar that is supposed to sort of replicate the smell of, of wet rain hitting a very dry earth for the very first time, the first rains of the season in India, let's say. Mitti attar sort of replicates that, if you will. And if you've ever smelled that smell, it's a very specific smell, and it can give off a little bit of a clay, earthiness. And there is a little bit of that in here. So even though there is no clay note, I completely understand why they put that clay note in there. The last thing I feel like I have to address is some of the comments. So there have been some, I read some of the comments on Fragrantica, which I don't always do, but since this is a new brand, I was just kind of curious. And many people, multiple people said that this feels like a recycled formula, that Dixit Zak is like re-releasing new fragrances and they're recycling their scents with new names. Don't know if that's true or not, as I have no experience with it, but I feel like it's something I had to mention since it was mentioned many times in the reviews that I read. Multiple people said, hey, they feel like, the brand's DNA is very similar, which there's nothing wrong with having a particular brand DNA, but if your fragrances all start to smell the same, that is a problem. And even between Emperor's Court and Rising Cologne, two completely different fragrances, I can really see this Dixit Zak DNA, and it's not my favorite. I'll tell you that right now. It's really not. I think maybe it would appeal to people who think that brands like Bortnikoff and Arise Ladore and Ensar are just way too harsh and heavy-handed and animalic for them, or whatever it is. They want something that maybe just takes the tiniest step ahead of what, some of the designer houses can sort of make, but they don't want to go all the way into something like Arise Ladore or something like that. That's sort of what it sounds like to me as the brand DNA. But again, this is the first video I've done on the brand, so I have a feeling that my review of Emperor's Court is going to be much better than Rising Cologne. And if I can get my hands on some old decants or something of Rising Mysore, I would love to do those videos for you guys as well. But if you have experience, with that brand of Dixit Zak, I'd love to know if this is true, if it's something you're familiar with, or if it's just rumors, people writing stuff on Fragrantica and Parfumo and they don't really know what they're saying. So in recap, I will say, opens up very citrusy, with the very verdant green citrusy like opening, a little bit of a tea-like vibe with that Jasmine grandiflorum, and then the Jasmine Absolute. The florals come in, and it gives off that ambergris vibe, if you will, even though there's no ambergris. And I just really wish, as it continued to dry, that switch to the civet. I mean, I almost don't pick up any civet in this. Almost none. I mean, just if it's there, it's just the tiniest drop, just for contrast, if you will. And I would love it if they really dialed up the animalics more. Because people who are spending this kind of money on a fragrance, I think they really want art in a bottle. They don't want something that I understand it's a cologne and all that, but you smell something like amber cologne, you can smell, there's multiple types of ambergris in here. It's almost like you can smell the white and the brown ambergris in here. And I know the brown ambergris is usually seen as the more animalic, challenging ambergris, but that's one of the reasons I love this so much is, yes, it's a cologne. Yes, I really feel like I can wear it anywhere, but there is something that keeps me interested. It keeps my nose coming back for more. Cologne, Rising Cologne didn't do that for me. I was almost like today thinking, man, kind of a boring wear. I mean, yeah, it's cool to wear something new, but it just wasn't doing it for me. But that's just my personal opinion. So if you have experience with Rising Cologne or the House of Dixit Zak, leave a comment. I appreciate everyone watching and commenting. Thank you to everyone who got us to 5,000 subscribers. I did a 5,000 subscriber live stream, and it was completely out of the blue, okay? So I put like the live stream up like 20 minutes before I started, and it was like on a Saturday night, late on a Saturday night. And so I got many more requests. Hey, can you do more live streams? I'm going to try to do more live streams, but it still may be random. So if you can join, I love the interaction with you guys in the live streams. If you can join on a whim, great. If not, hopefully you can watch it, afterwards. But thank you to everyone who gave me well wishes and all that good stuff. It is very much appreciated. So cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.